What's up, guys? Welcome to the Season 2 recap of my Detroit Tigers Out of the Park series. This video is really good for anybody that wants to catch up really fast. You can go watch my Season 1 recap and then watch this video, and you'll be all caught up on the series. In today's video, we are going to be going over all the big trades that have happened, as well as the stats of the players and any other big events that happened throughout the year. And then finally, we're going to end it on the plans/ideas for the offseason. But first, we're going to get started with all of the trades we made in the past season. Alright, here we have the first trade we made in our second season. We went out and we got an ace in Sonny Gray. We managed to get them to retain 85% of his contract, which is a huge reason why I went and even traded for him. We did give up kind of a big package. We gave up Kyle Muller, who has actually gotten called up for them, and he pitched an 8.38 ERA, 19 Ks and 19 innings, so he wasn't great. He also had 10 walks in 19 innings, which is not good. So he wasn't good at all at the major league level. He wasn't that good, I'm guessing, at AAA as well. So, I mean, I'm not too worried about giving him up. Christian Santana was probably the biggest piece of this trade. He's a shortstop prospect. Obviously, we're overstocked at that position in the prospect category. We already have Rob Gordon and our pick this year, whose name I can't remember at the moment. So we're really stacked there. So getting rid of him wasn't a huge deal, but he looks like he's going to be the best player out of this deal, especially since Sonny Gray is no longer on the team. We also gave up Renato Nunez, who's a decent first baseman in the major leagues. He didn't do great for them. He hit 314 on base, 230 average, 19 home runs, and it wasn't anything special. And then we also gave up Roberto Campos, who is also nothing special. Not really too much to say about this trade. Since Sonny Gray is no longer on the team, there's not much whether or not, I guess once we look at what we got in return for Sonny Gray, and then the future we'll be able to tell if we won or lost this trade. But for now, I'm not too upset about it. None of these guys I don't think were ever going to be a huge part of our roster, especially the last two guys. And then Christian Santana is the only guy I think worth value that we gave up that could be something in the future. Next, we're going to move on to the second trade. We actually acquired a second baseman in Adam Frazier. They retained 50% of his contract. Once again, that's going to be a big thing with most of the trades I made is money, because we were very strapped for cash throughout this second season. But this trade was actually really good because we gave up virtually nothing. Kevin Kelly, half-star potential, half-star overall. Nothing really is what he's not going to be anything in the future, so I'm not worried about that one. And then Beau Burrows, he isn't the best. He isn't the worst. 2-star overall, 2-star potential. I don't think he was ever going to make it to the majors, especially with I want to win, next year I want to start actually competing. So I don't see him ever being on the roster. He's 26 already, so I don't see this as a trade that we won or lost, because we're probably going to let him go in the offseason just as a heads up for later on. Whenever I talk about our offseason plans, we're probably going to let him go. He wants a lot of money, and we already have another guy that's going to take his place. I'll get into that more when I get to the end of the video. And these guys, they weren't anything special. I would have been fine if I just released them, so it was fine just to have him for this season. He played really well for us. He hit 281 with 11 home runs and 57 RBIs. That's a really good line from him. I'm happy with that. There's nothing really to say about that trade except it was a fine trade, and we didn't win or lose it, in my opinion. Next, we go to the third trade. We made a trade with the Nationals. This was really a money dump, I'm pretty sure. We traded away Shane Green and Ronnie Garcia for $2 million in cash, and Kyle Finnegan, who I'm pretty sure I went and released. Yeah, I went and released him after acquiring him. That one wasn't a big deal at all. It was really exactly what I said. It was a money dump. Nothing really too exciting from this deal. It was a money dump. We'll move on to the next trade because that one is very boring. Here we have the biggest trade of the series. We acquired Xander Bogaerts from the Boston Red Sox, as well as $10 million in cash. And I'm pretty sure that was because we needed to pay for some of his contract. And then we gave up sort of a big package, sort of not. We acquired Tony Gonsolin on waivers, and then we traded him away here to get Xander Bogaerts. So that was sort of like free money that we were playing with. We didn't give up him as if we like drafted him and then traded him away, as he wasn't a valuable asset for us, so I was fine with that. Leba was a backup middle infielder, and we ended up moving Xander to the starting shortstop spot, and then we switched Freddie Galvis to the backup, so he was expendable. Paul Richan, I'm pretty sure he was the guy I was most concerned about giving up, but looking at him now, I don't think I'm too worried about it. He was just an average starting pitching prospect. He wasn't going to be an ace or anything, in my opinion. He is decent at some points, and then there were some times I was thinking he wouldn't be. So I was just fine with getting rid of him. And then Jack Kinley was just a second base prospect, 25 already. Doesn't look like he's going to be anything special. So a lot of this is just throw in for Xander Bogaerts, who's on the last year of his deal. Or he had a player opt out, and I'll get into whether or not he opted in or opted out once we get to the end of the video when I talk about the offseason. But overall, I don't think, even if Xander walked, I don't really care about this deal because we didn't give up anything too valuable that I think would hurt us in the future. We'll move on to the next trade, another trade with the Boston Red Sox. We went out and we got an elite closer. Hernandez was really good for us. He pitched 30 innings for us with a 2.1 ERA, 53 Ks in 30 innings. He was really good for us. He was a nice bullpen arm closer for us. We have a lot of those types of arms on our roster, and I like having an abundance of it. We did give up sort of a lot. We gave up Victor Reyes, who's a nice little outfield piece. He's only 28. He hits good. He hit 274 for them with 4 home runs. So he did pretty good. Zach Hess, I believe. He is a really good prospect. That's one thing we had to give up. We were giving up a prospect for the future for a player now. He actually played for Boston. He pitched 45 innings, and he had a 3.57 ERA. So he was actually really good for Boston. But I preferred this guy. We needed a closer. We didn't actually end up winning too many games, but at least he came in and he closed out a lot of them. So I'm fine with that. He's going to be on our team for the future. He's our closer for the future as of right now. So I'm fine with that deal. And then finally we move on to the last trade we made. This was a deadline day trade, I'm pretty sure. We traded away Sonny Gray, and we got $4 million in cash first of all, and then we also got Andres Munoz, who's another really good closer that I'm really excited about. He's about 24. He's going to turn 24 in however many days. He's already pretty close. He throws 99 to 101. He has really good ratings on his pitches. He has 2 really good pitches, and then his changeup's about average. For us, he pitched 29 innings with an ERA of 2.48. His ERA plus is really good. His FIP minus is really good. 43 Ks in 29 innings is really good. I really like what he brings to us, even if it's just in a middle relief role. I prefer that over Sonny Gray leaving in the offseason. So I'm really happy that we made that trade at the deadline. I think that was a really smart trade, especially for the future, as this guy's only 23 years old, and he's going to be a really good bullpen arm for years and years to come. Next, we'll just go over some team stats real fast. So we were 70 and 92. Not great. I also wanted to go over in last video or past videos in this season, I kept saying, looking at these team stat rankings and saying that we were ranked really good when we really weren't, because I didn't realize that these were in just the American League. I thought they were in the entire Major League Baseball. So we're actually really bad in a lot of these stats. So 14th in home runs is second to last. So we're in the bottom third in almost all of these categories, which is really bad. I did not realize that, and that probably guided me a little bit in the wrong direction, but it's fine. We got through the season. We weren't awfully bad. We were bad, but we weren't as bad as last year. We made a big step, which I'm happy with. Next, let's go to the lineups first. I was really, really happy with our lineups. Our lineups were a big bright side, in my opinion. So at the catching position, we have a little bit of a battle going on for that starting spot. Cal and Ivan, it's really hard to decide who gets the starting job because Cal's 25. He still has potential for the future. He was hitting really good to start the year, and then he fell off a little bit, and then Ivan got a lot of starts. Ivan is 22, though, with 5-star potential, and he's already 3-star overall. Cal's 3-star with 3.5 potential. They both present a lot to this team. I just don't know who to choose. It's a choice I'm probably going to have to make, if not this offseason, next offseason. But for now, they're on our roster. They both finished the year not so great, batting .232 for Ivan and .243 for Cal. But Cal did hit 12 home runs and 42 RBIs. Ivan had 6 home runs and 25 RBIs. Their OPS pluses were not great at all. Nobody really on the team outside of a few players had good OPS plus or OPS in general. Next, we'll move on to the first base position. As you can see, Miguel Cabrera is not there because he actually retired this offseason. I'll go over that real fast. It was very interesting. So the Tigers retired his number, which is understandable. They also retired Justin Verlander's number. So I'm really happy about that. That takes a lot of money out of the payroll that we have to pay people now. That's almost 32, 34, 30, something like that, million a year that we don't have to pay anymore. And it's also a roster spot that does not have to be taken up by a first baseman / DH when we already have our starting first baseman in Evan White. Now I'll go over his stats real fast. He hit .241 average, .315 on base. His OPS plus was not great. It was below average. He had 22 home runs, though, which I'm really happy with, 69 RBIs. Those are good stats for me. I'm fine with that. I just wanted a good defensive first baseman in him, so anything more is fine with me. He's 26. He plays good defense. That's really all I can ask for. Adam Frazier here, 281, 11 home runs, 57 RBIs. I think I went over that earlier just a little bit. He was about average in OPS plus, it's fine with me. That's good. I'm fine with that. I didn't expect more than average out of him. He was just in there to fill the place until we figured something else out. And here's to something else. Spencer Torkelson, we actually called up. It wasn't very many games. He only started 9 because he wasn't even a starter. Right now he's in the DH. This is not what the lineup looked like, though, during the season. He is going to be the starting baseman, second baseman next year. He hit .212 with 4 RBIs, no home runs in the 9 games he started. I'm not going to focus too much on the stats he had in this season because he didn't get to play that much. He didn't even have much time he wasn't a starter either for most of the end of the year, so I'm not going to judge him too much there. Next, we move on to our third basemen. First, we'll start with probably the MVP of this team, Chris Bryant. He was a really good offseason acquisition. He hit .280 with almost a .380 on base. He had 30 home runs, 97 RBIs. He walked 77 times, which is really surprising that he led the team in walks, considering that was a big issue with him, was striking out too much. And he did good with his plate vision. It's very hard to decide whether or not we bring him back. But for now, we'll just move on to Austin Riley, I guess. Austin Riley, he was all right. He wasn't. He was bad, I would say, for the beginning of the season. And then we sent him down to AAA. And then we called him back up at the end, I believe, to play some DH. He hit .243 with 10 home runs and 36 RBIs. It doesn't look awful here. His OPS plus was really bad. I hope he can have a bounce back season next year because I need him to be a good piece for us because he was a big reason that we traded away 2 big-time players last season. So I'm hoping he works out for us this season. Next we'll move on to the last infielder, Xander Bogaerts. He hit .287 with 27 home runs and 84 RBIs. This was part of him in Boston and him here, obviously. For us specifically, he hit .295, 25 home runs, 79 RBIs. Really, really good numbers. It's really hard to decide between Chris Bryant and Xander Bogaerts as a little hint into what the offseason is going to come between. Is we're basically going to have to pick between Chris Bryant and Xander Bogaerts on who to bring back. And that's going to be a decision for later in the video. I don't want to think about it too much right now. We'll move on to Riley Green next, our left fielder, our starting left fielder for many, many years to come, hopefully. We called him up earlier than we did Torkelson, so obviously he got way more starts and way more appearances. He was hitting really well to start his MLB career, but then it fell off a little bit, so that's why it's 261 batting average now. But he had a decent on base with 336. 17 home runs and 70 RBIs and only 100 starts I'm pretty happy with that. That's, every 7 out of 10 games he's getting an RBI. I'm fine with that. That's pretty good. Trey Harris is probably the biggest shocker on the roster with how well he performed. He was just sort of a throw-in in the big trade we made in our first season. He hit 280 this season with a 343 on base. He led off for most of the year. He hit 12 home runs, 56 RBIs. He was pretty good for us. I don't think there's a reason for me to replace him anytime soon. His defense is a little bit lower than I would like in that center field position, but he's fine enough. He hits good, which is what I like. His OPS plus is right around average. I'm happy with what he does. He brings good enough to the table, which is basically all we can afford at this point. We'll move on to the last starter, and then I'll go over these two guys right here. So Cespedes was a big piece that I really liked in the outfield. He hit 267, 17 home runs, 79 RBIs. His OPS plus was lower than average, but I'm fine with it being below average because earlier on in the season, he was hitting really well. So he just fell off a little at the end, I'm guessing. I think he's a good right fielder for the future. He has good defense. He's 25. He has good ratings in the game. He puts up good stats. I'm happy with our outfielders right now. I don't think they're going to change this offseason unless we find some superstar that we can trade for. But I envision that being our starting 3 outfielders. We'll move on to the bench outfielders. Cole Calhoun came in as a DH option mostly. He hit 252 with 12 home runs and 28 RBIs. So he really was just a power bat / pinch hitter, DH type of guy. He probably won't be on the roster next year. We signed him to a minor league deal, I think, and I'm guessing that extended to a major league deal. Yeah, major league contract once we had him up for a certain amount of days. Then we move on to Derek Hill. He was initially the starting center fielder, and then he wasn't performing, so I made him the backup. He's very capable of being a backup outfielder. He can play all the positions very well. He has decent hitting ratings. They don't really translate to stats. He hit 212 with 2 home runs and 20 RBIs. I'm fine with that. He's just a backup defensive outfielder, really, in my mind. So I'm really happy with all of our players on the offensive side of the ball. Like, before the last month, I would say, they were all hitting really well, and then it kind of fell off towards the end. But we'll move on to the pitchers next. So we'll start with the rotation here. For most of the year, it was Sonny Gray as the starter, but as you know, we traded him. So we also are missing, from this list, we're missing Casey Mize, who has 6 months of injury time left. He pitched not good. He was 5.31 ERA. We'll actually go into more advanced stats here. 5.31 ERA. His ERA plus was bad. His FIP minus wasn't awful, 4.59 FIP. So I'm not upset with that. He had 185 strikeouts and 175 innings, basically. He was a 2-win pitcher, pretty much. He went 7-14. He just wasn't lucky, I guess. His BABIP is pretty high, I guess. It's not great. I don't like seeing it that high, but hopefully he can bounce back next season and continue to grow. He's already 25. He needs to be good enough to be a 2-3 guy for us because we just don't have an ace, first of all, and then we also don't have the arms at the bottom of the rotation to really bring up what he's lacking right now. And then we'll move on to Matt Manning here. He's very similar. His ERA, very high, 6.36. His ERA plus is bad. His FIP minus is a little below average. His FIP is 5.05. He had 139 strikeouts and 172 innings, which I really don't like to see. I would prefer strikeouts to be above the innings pitched. His walks per 9 is 3. His Ks per 9 is 7.2. Not a huge fan of that ratio either. He was 7-17. Not great. That has to do more with the team talent, though, than his own pitching, I think, but it's sort of reflective of it. He was a 1-win pitcher this year. Not great from him. Now that we move on from the top 2 prospects from the very beginning of our series, we'll move on to the more surprising guys / guys that we've acquired. We'll save Lejay Newsome for last. We move on to Domingo Germán, who we claimed off of waivers, and I was really happy with what he provided for us this year. He went 10-11. He pitched 167 innings, and he had 101 Ks. He had a FIP minus below average. His FIP was 5.05. His ERA was 5.92, and his ERA plus was below average. A lot of our players fell off in the last month or two, but before that, he was the only pitcher. He was I think he was 10-2, and his ERA was decent. It was 4 something. He was pitching really well for us. He fell off towards the end. I don't know if he's going to be on the roster after this year. He might get dealt, or he might. I don't know what we're going to do with him, but he did what he was supposed to do in that 5 spot for us. I was really happy with that and his production. Next, we're going to move on to Touki Toussaint, who is probably the second most surprising pitcher on this roster. He pitched for us in the majors. He pitched 69 innings. He had 74 strikeouts for an ERA of 2.86 with an ERA plus really well. His FIP, though, was 4.21, which is still good. His FIP minus is good. I'm really shocked with how well he came up and performed for us, because in 2021, he was below average, I would say, but not too far below average. So I'm really happy that he came up and he pitched well once we traded away Sonny Gray and he got the call-up. I'm really happy that he came in and was able to show that he can pitch good enough to be a 5-starter maybe for us next year, or in the future a 5-starter. Lastly, we'll move on to Lejay Newsome. I'm not going to go into Joey Wentz's stats, really. He pitched 1 game, and it wasn't anything special. So we'll go into Lejay Newsome here, probably the most shocking starting pitcher for us. He was arguably our ace throughout the year. Obviously, at the end, like I've said, everyone fell off just a little bit. But his ERA, he finishes with nearly a 4 ERA, and his FIP is 0.01 difference between his ERA. So he basically did exactly what he was expected to. He had a good ERA plus, good FIP minus. He had 168 strikeouts to 205 innings, which is a little concerning, but he had a really, really low walk rate, walks per 9, and I like to see that. So I think that was a big part of him being so successful this year. He's really earned a spot in this rotation, maybe as a 4 guy. If we ever acquire an ace, then we have that whole rotation set there. He went 10-11. I'm pretty sure that's the same record as Domingo Germán. So basically, he was our ace this year. Statistically, he was, and maybe even talent-wise, he might have even been that this year. None of our starting pitchers were anything too special outside of Lejay Newsome for the entire year, so I'm really happy with how he stepped up and performed for us. Next, we'll move on to the bullpen, which switched around a lot throughout the year. So Martinez and Garcia were going in between the closing role at the beginning of the year, and then we acquired Hernandez. We'll go into his stats real fast. He was really good. He pitched 30 innings for us. He had an ERA plus that was really good. A FIP minus that was really good. His FIP was very similar to his ERA, so I'm happy with that. Good Ks to innings, 53 strikeouts to 30 innings. I'm happy with that. He had 20 saves. He had 12 with Boston, so it's 32 on the year. I'm really happy with everything that he provides in that closing role. He's also very similar to a lot of other pitchers. He's a power pitcher. There's high 90s. He has a good 3-pitch arsenal, fastball, curveball, changeup. I really like what he brings. He's 25 as well. He's about to turn 26, so he's very young. Next, we move on to Martinez, who disappointed me a lot this year. Luckily, though, he has some time to bounce back. We still have him for 4 more years after this season. He pitched 6.54 ERA. His FIP, though, was 4.15, which I would be happy with. His FIP minus is good. 82 strikeouts in 53 innings. That's good. 8 saves, 4 wins, 4 losses. That's not too big of a deal for me. His walks per 9 are a little bit higher than I would like, but he was good overall. He's 26. He just turned 26 a month ago. So I'm really happy still with his potential moving forward. Maybe not his season this year, but outside of that, I think he's fine for us. Next, we'll move on to Alex Lang. He wasn't as good as I wanted him to be, but once again, if we look at his FIP, it's 3.19, which is really good. When you look at his FIP minus, it's good. His strikeouts to inning ratio is good, 83. Strikeouts to 59 innings. He was good enough of a pitcher that I think he's definitely going to be on the roster next year. He has potential to get better. I think he might have just got a little unlucky. Maybe when we start winning, his stats will be better because he'll actually have more of a reason to pitch than to lose games, basically. Next, we'll move on to Brian Garcia. He was all right. He was really good in the setup role, and then he got moved to the closer, and he fell off a little bit. And then we moved him back to the setup, and then he got moved to the middle relief once we acquired the closer. This season, though, he finished with a 3.55 ERA. His FIP was 3.39, so very similar to his ERA. He had 72 strikeouts in 66 innings. He was a solid piece for us. He was a solid bullpen arm. I'm really happy with how he performed in that middle relief role. I was worried he wouldn't perform as well. So I'm really happy with that. We'll move on to Will Vest real fast. He had 73 innings pitched, 61 strikeouts, not great. 5.15 ERA. His ERA plus wasn't great. His FIP minus wasn't great. They're both below average. His FIP was 5.20, which is very similar to his ERA, which is not a good sign because that ERA is not good. Hopefully he can have a bounce-back year next year. I like what the potential he has. He has a good three-pitch arsenal. He throws hard. He's a power pitcher. Hopefully he can bounce back next year. Next, we move on to Munoz, who I acquired in the trade deadline for Sonny Gray. He pitched really good for us. 2.48 ERA. His FIP was 3.49, which is not similar to his ERA, but it's still very respectable. I'm very happy if he was pitching even that. He had 43 strikeouts in 29 innings. I'm happy with what he did in that middle relief role as well. Duvall, I'm pretty sure, got called up when the rosters expanded, so not a huge sample size, but he pitched to a 5.7 ERA. His ERA plus wasn't great. His FIP minus, though, is really good, 3.65. So hopefully that means he'll be a little bit better next year. Hopefully he'll be more lucky and pitch to what he's supposed to. 30 strikeouts in 30 innings. 1-to-1 ratio there, strikeouts per inning. That's fine with me. He's more of a prospect type of bullpen arm right now, but that is probably going to be on the roster next year. He only has the two-pitch arsenal, but he throws really hard, and he's a sidearm pitcher, so that sort of adds to a lot of it. He will probably be on this roster next year. I don't know if it's going to be as a long relief, but he has the stamina to do it. Our main long relief guy was Michael King. He could be a starter on this team, really, but we just don't have the room for him. I'd rather him be in the bullpen as a long relief. He pitched a 4 ERA. His FIP was 3.84. Both of those I'm happy with. His strikeouts were 86, and he had 87 innings pitched, so I'm happy with that as well. He was a good long relief arm. I'm really happy with what he brought in that role. Aaron Fletcher was a lefty specialist. He wasn't anything special. I mean, he was serviceable, I guess. 4.15 ERA. His FIP wasn't good, though, at 5.64 or 5.46. He had 34 strikeouts in 34 innings. I think he can be a little bit better than what his stats are saying, so he's definitely going to get another chance next year. But that is all of our pitchers and our starters there. There's a lot to be desired with the starting pitching and a little bit unlucky, I think, in the bullpen. A lot of them pitched really well, though. I'm really happy with the amount of talent that we have in the bullpen. And even if you go to our system down here, we still have Kyle Doy, Joey Gerber, and we have Pinto, who I think is going to be a decent arm. He throws fast. He has 2 really good pitches here. He's only 24. He could also be a piece for us. I'm pretty sure that was the only other arms, though, that we haven't left that are really exciting. We do have a lot of starting pitching arms, though, down here that are serviceable in the majors. You have Alex, Jake Faria. We have We also have Mitch Keller, who I think is more of a starter, but he's listed as a closer right now. Daniel Norris is also a starter. We have a lot of good arms down there, not be worried necessarily about how they are performing in the majors to where we would need to go and acquire another arm. We'll move on to any prospects. I don't think there's too many big prospects down here that I'm too concerned with. We'll look at Drew Waters real fast. I don't think he performed well. If I remember correctly, in AAA, he had 70 games. He hit 258 with 9 RBIs and 9 home runs, 46 RBIs. Nothing special there. He's still developing. I hope he can develop into something. He's almost 24, so he still has time to develop. A lot of the pieces from that Atlanta Braves trade have been underwhelming. It's Drew Waters, Tukey, Austin Riley, and Trey Harris. So 2 out of 4 have been exceeding expectations, and then 2 out of 4, and then the other 2 are below expectations. So it's really still up in the air, but it's not looking good so far. We'll move down. We'll look at Jack Leiter's stats. He's a big prospect for us. He pitched in AAA and in AA this year. Very split in the amount of innings. It was basically 50-50. If we take a look at AA, he obviously pitched better, 3.9 ERA with a FIP of 3.64, so those are very similar. 57 strikeouts in 67 innings isn't great, but he did improve with the strikeouts in AAA. He had 60 strikeouts in 60 innings. For a 6 ERA. His FIP, though, was 4.54, which I'm fine with. His FIP minus is good. Just a little unlucky. I think maybe 1 or 2 more years, maybe, and he'll be good to go as a starting pitcher for us. I would say probably one more year in the minors, and he'll be good. So I'm really happy with that. It was nothing special, but it was also there's no signs to be worried about there. We can look at Daz Cameron real fast. He's an outfield arm an outfield backup outfielder option maybe in the future. He was really, really hot at one point, and I almost considered calling him up throughout the season, but he's obviously fallen off here. 2.45 average, 300 on base, 5 home runs, 32 RBIs, nothing special there. And then if we just move on now to single A, we have a lot of our recent draft picks. Tamar Johnson, I won't go into too in depth, but he hit 275 with 2 home runs and 21 RBIs in 60 games. That's good. He was our most recent pick. He's probably the future at the shortstop position. We also have the other shortstop that I drafted, Rob Gordon. He's an A-ball. He hit 292 with 5 home runs and 41 RBIs in 116 games. So he's also performing well. Very similar competition that they're playing, I'm sure. But it's still up in the air. I'm sure it's going to end up being Tamar Johnson, though, that eventually wins the spot at shortstop. We have another catching prospect, Jacob Cozart. He didn't perform very well in either of the minor league teams that he was on. There's no one else, I don't think, that I really want to go into too much depth over. Xavier Isaac, he wasn't great. He had 7 home runs, 247 average. So yeah, there was no one really on the prospect side that I really was too excited to show any stats about. Hopefully, they all get a little bit better next year and they can all get called up to higher, like AAA and AA, and that will mean more with the stats. Next, we're going to move on to my off-season plans. There's a lot to consider. So first of all, we had Miggy retire, so now let's take a look at the budget that we have. We have $46 million available for free agents and $38 for extensions. One thing before I go on, I'm not sure if that includes the money available for Chris Bryant and Xander Bogaerts leaving. Like if they left, would that go up by $25 million? I'm not sure. If that's true, then we might be able to bring both of them back. But if it's not true and this is how much we have to bring them back, then we are definitely choosing between one or the other. They both, let's take a look at the messages. They both voided their contracts, so they both had player opt-outs for this offseason, and they both opted out. which is unfortunate, especially on Chris Bryant's deal. He had a very, very, very good deal with the season he had. It was 5.5 for the next 3 years after this one, so that would have been really nice. But obviously, he's leaving. Xander Bogaerts is leaving. Our owner went over the season goals. He basically said he's satisfied with the performance this year. You can look at the rest of these, and then he gave us next year's goals. He said, don't suck completely, upgrade at catcher, bring in a manager with a better reputation. The attendance was the same one as this year. Bring more of your drafted players to the team and keep building your team up in order to reach the playoffs. All of those are very achievable. I'm not sure about the manager part, though. I like AJ Hinch, but I've also thought about replacing the whole staff pretty much with new guys, because I just want a whole new regime to come in that wasn't a part of the last 2 years, that also work well together, and I'd rather just build that from the ground up than trying to fit it in like a puzzle piece. So we'll see. That is probably a big part of the offseason, is figuring out the coaching staff, but that will be in next episode. I won't go into any more detail about that this episode. The budget, I'm pretty sure he increased it. We have 112 available for total team expense, which brings the team payroll to around 80. I'm pretty sure it was at 72 last year. I'm not sure. You'd have to go back and check the past videos for that. So I'm pretty sure it's a good sign. Then we have Miguel Cabrera, Justin Verlander retiring, and their numbers being retired here. And then we have the end of the season prospect list. Tamar Johnson's listed on here as the number 1 prospect. And then we have Spencer Torkelson down here as the number 10 prospect. We can go look at this minor league system rankings. We're still number 1 by a decent margin. It's showing Riley Green as the number 1 prospect, and then Tamar Johnson as the number 2. Torkelson is 18, Leiter as 49, and Ivan Herrera as 58. 3 of the 5 guys there are going to be major league players next year to start the season, so that's going to fall off probably, but I like to think that we'll still be a very high-ranked farm system with the other guys that we have. And then from there, I'll just show you who got fired. So the GM for the Orioles got fired. The Royals fired their GM. The Cincinnati GM got fired. The Pittsburgh GM got fired. And the Colorado GM got fired. So once again, we miss the axe chopping people away there. We did not get fired, which is good. Another year here. I don't even know what I'd do if I got fired. The series just might end if I got fired. So hopefully we can win next year and we don't have to worry about that ever happening. So let's get into my plans for the lineup, first of all, with the offseason. Once again, we're going to be getting rid of Adam Frazier. He's not going to be back. So Spencer Torkelson is going to be the starting second baseman. We have our 2 catchers. We have our first baseman, second baseman. And then we have the shortstop and third base conundrum here. Let's take a look at some contract extensions, what they want. So Chris Bryant wants 5 years with an average annual salary of $18.6, which isn't bad, but he's 30, and I don't really want to be paying him, $19 million when he's 35. That's not in my plan. So I'd try and get that down to at the most 3, but then obviously his average annual salary would go up, and I'm not sure how much I'm willing to really pay him, considering it was not... He had a bad year last year, so I don't know if this is just a fluke this year. We'll see, but I don't think I'm going to bring him back. I'm almost positive I want to bring back Bogaerts instead. He wants a 6-year deal for an AAV of $30 million. Now, it's a lot more money, and it's also the 1 more year, but he is the shortstop I want on this team, I'm pretty sure. We don't have any shortstop options for this year or maybe even the year after that. So I think bringing him back on maybe like a 3-year deal, if we could do it for 30 maybe, that's probably the only way I'd do this. If If we can hit use for all and then we get rid of all the options. I'm fine with all the bonuses down here. Those are fine with me. He wants a no trade clause, which is interesting. We'll include it. We'll see what he says about this. So he wants a 4-year deal, and he wants it to be 31.3, which isn't. And then he wants there a player option for that last year. He did just turn 30, like 1.5 months ago. So this is an interesting one. I'm not gonna sit here and offer it yet, but we'll definitely think about it. That's what basically it would be to bring him back, roughly 31.3 for 3 years with the player option in that 4th year. That's very interesting. And then if we go to the outfield, we have Riley Green, Trey Harris, Cespedes. That's our 3 starting outfielders. So really it's just third base and shortstop that we're looking at. If we don't bring back Chris Bryant, it's going to be Austin Riley still. We're going to give him another chance at the third base position. And if he doesn't work out there, then we'll have to figure something else out. On the pitching side, I don't think any of these guys are expiring. And I don't think any of our bullpen is expiring. So most of these guys are going to get brought back. We have Matt Manning, we have Lejay Newsome, we have Tuki Toussaint, Domingo Herman, and then we have Casey Mize. Those are our 5 guys as of right now. I'd prefer there to be an ace there, but I think I'd wait to trade for an ace until we were actually winning before I gave up real pieces of value. Beyond that, we have the money to spend for extensions, and that's where I think I would want to spend a lot of the money. So guys like Spencer Torkelson and Riley Green and anybody else here, Ivan Herrera even, I kind of want to do the believing in them type of contract like Ronald Acuna and Ozzie Albies. They got a big contract before they really proved themselves. They didn't have to go through years of arbitration or anything. They just gave them the big contract that is now a steal looking back at it because they just believed in them enough to give them that big money. And I think I want to do something similar with Riley Green here. I believe, I already worked out a contract that works, so it's $10 million a year. It comes out to be $100 million over 10 years. He has a player opt-out after that 5th year, which he probably would opt out, but it's really just in order for him to take this. I think I would like to bring it down maybe, just to see if he would be willing to compromise just a little bit. So if we can do that and then use it for all and then ask for a response. So now he doesn't want to do that, so we'll go back to 10 years. We'll include the player opt-out after that 5th year, and we'll go back and we'll try and do, let's see if we can do $9 million instead. And then we'll use this for all. And I think that's a good deal. And so he doesn't want it again. So let's see if he'll go back to the 10 million a year for 10 years there. And hopefully he'd be willing to accept that. I mean, it's a good deal. He was willing to accept it once. Okay, so now he's willing to consider it and discuss it. I think I'm going to offer this because this goes into his 32-year-old year or it goes into his 27-year-old year. It's a really good deal considering he could be a superstar. And at that price for 5 years, I'd be really happy with that. So just going ahead and sending that out now before we even get to the off-season episode, I'll just leave his choice or his decision on that for the next video so that you have something to look forward to. I don't think I'm ready to extend Torkelson just yet. Ivan Herrera, I wanted to see how much he wanted before I went ahead and did anything else. I think I'd be willing to give him the 10-year deal with the opt-out after 5 years, but it would be for significantly less. It'd be around $5 million. Yeah, $5 million, which, brings it to $50 million over 10 years, which is fine. We'll ask for a response. He said that suits him. Is there any way I could offer less, or is he not going to like me offering less here? Yeah, he doesn't like me offering less there after I just offered that, obviously. So we'll just go ahead and we'll switch it back to $5 million a year. and then we'll offer it to him. I'm fine with paying him that much, even if it doesn't work out. It's not a bad deal. It's $5 million a year, barely even touches any of the budget. And so now we're looking at spending a decent chunk of the extension budget there, which is fine. I don't really plan on extending anybody else except for Bogarts. And even if we don't extend Bogarts, we could still bring him back once free agency already hits. Worst case scenario, though, we just don't bring him back and he is not on the roster, and we'll just figure something out else at the shortstop position. For now, I think that's going to end this Season 2 recap. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope you guys caught up on everything, and I hope I went over everything. Real fast, actually, I just remembered one thing. Ivan Herrera was a Rule 5 pick, which is a big part of the Season 2 here. So that's just something I wanted to go over real fast, was that he was acquired through the Rule 5 draft, which is a really good pickup for us. But besides that, I really hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope you guys got caught up now, and I hope you guys are excited for this offseason because it's going to be really big and really exciting. And make sure to leave a like and leave a comment what you think about re-signing Chris Bryant, re-signing Xander Bogaerts, who we should maybe acquire in the offseason. But for now, thank you guys for watching, and make sure you leave a like and subscribe.